Hello, Patriots. I'm Lee Watts, and this is Patriot Point, your source for Kentucky news and analysis from a conservative, Christian, and common sense point of view. Well, this week we are talking about Kentucky tax rates.
Taxes! Taxes! Beautiful, lovely taxes!
Yes, for the past few years, Kentuckians have been told you're going to be paying a 0% state income tax. But it turns out you're not actually going to be paying a 0% state income tax. No, you're actually going to be paying a state income tax and increasing tax rates. Yes, it was 1 week after the elections. And everybody keep notice of that. 1 week after the elections. The Kentucky State Speaker of the House, David Osborne, was speaking at the Commerce Lexington Luncheon, and he was talking about this idea of removing the Kentucky State income tax plan down to zero, and it turns out he's never actually had that as an idea. He said, quote, "We've always known it will only carry us so far," end quote, talking about how, well, we've gone down a little bit, but we're not going to get down to zero. So I'm wondering if his plan was never actually to get the state income tax level to zero, then Mr. Osborne, what is your plan? Well, this is what he said, quote, word for word. "We don't eliminate our income tax, but also we won't have significant sales tax increases," end quote. Now, I want you to notice two important things from his statement. Number one, he's like, we don't eliminate our income tax. For years now, he's been pushing this idea, as well as some other politicians. Hey, we're going to be moving your income tax rates on the state level down to zero. Well, that's not his plan. His plan is we're not going to do that. But then notice the second part. This is the sneaky part. He says we won't have significant sales tax increases. You know what that's a code word for? That's a code word for we are going to be increasing your sales tax, but I'm just going to define it as not significant. Well, here's the problem right now. Kentucky voters, we were promised saying, hey, we're going to move your state income tax level down to zero with this idea you're not going to punish me in other ways. But it kind of feels like Charlie Brown in the football. So you got Charlie Brown, he listens to voters. Then you got the politicians promising, hey, you're going to have a 0% state income tax. Well, how's that turning out? Yes, it's the old bait and switch where the politicians have said, yeah, put me in office, give me power, I'll move your state income tax down to zero. Well, it turns out I'm not going to do that. It's not the idea that you're getting a tax break, and that's how it's been sold. You're getting a tax break. You're not getting a decrease in taxes, and it's not moving laterally. That's what some have been honest and say, well, we're going to get rid of your income tax and we're just going to move this to a consumption-based tax system. But that's not the way it's going to be either. We're going to keep your income tax and we're going to increase your sales tax and the way we tax you on other things. So Kentuckians right now are probably feeling like this or this. Whole idea that the state doesn't have enough of your money. I've said it before, I'll say it again. It is not that the state taxes too little, it's that the state taxes too much. And they tax anything and everything. Here's something a lot of people probably don't realize is how much taxes you are paying every time you fill up your gas tank. Did you realize every single gallon you put in your tank, you are paying taxes of 28.7 cents per gallon every time you fill up your tank? They're hitting you in ways and you don't even know you're paying taxes. And a lot of Kentuckians don't realize it's such a high rate. And let's talk about some other things. This is an election year, and we need to address this issue of property taxes here, at least on the state level. Property tax is theft. When I buy a piece of property, I have to pay taxes on it. But you shouldn't have to continually pay taxes to keep your own property. For example, let's say that your family has lived on your plot of land since 1776. 200 plus years, your family has lived at that address. But if you don't pay your property taxes for that land this year, then you know what? You're going to wind up in jail, and sooner or later, you don't do it, the government's going to sell the land, they keep the money, and they give it to somebody else who will pay them for it. You realize property tax means nobody anywhere owns their land. You rent it from the government. And this is wrong. It's wrong for your land. It's wrong for your vehicle. I pay taxes when I earn money. I pay taxes when I spend the money. Let's say I buy a car. I pay taxes when I spend the money. And then I got to pay taxes every single year to keep my property, which I pay taxes for when I earn the money. I pay taxes for when I bought it. I pay taxes every time to keep it running on the road. And now I pay taxes to the government just to keep my own property. This is wrong, and the government needs a major wake-up call by saying, hey, listen, if you're going to continue this type of stuff, we're going to boot you out of office and put somebody in there who's going to respect the ownership of the people's money belongs to we the people. Now, President Reagan, he had an idea on taxes, and it was brilliant. It worked wonderfully. It gave a massive boost to the American economy, despite what all of the politicians were saying. Notice what he did. Listen to these words about taxes from President Reagan.
In 1981, our critics charged that letting you keep more of your earnings would trigger an inflationary explosion, send interest rates soaring, and destroy our economy. Well, we cut your tax rates anyway, by nearly 25%. And what that helped trigger was falling inflation, falling interest rates, and the strongest economic expansion in 30 years.
President Reagan was correct. If you actually let the people keep more of their money, it causes an economic boom. When there's an economic boom, the government is actually getting more money because the people are prospering. When the government starts taxing the people heavily, it's a vicious cycle of going downward, not upward. And if we want to talk about this, really what the left is pushing, the left is the one pushing for more government programs, more free giveaways, more of the socialist, communist ideas causing more taxation. And one of the communist ideas is, hey, if somebody's successful, punish them with more taxes. The more you make, the greater taxes you got to pay. This is a wholly un-American and unbiblical position. If you actually want to take a Christian biblical position from this, then the Bible says, listen, when you want to pay something such as like your tithe is 10%. It doesn't say the wealthy people have to pay 50% or 60 or whatever it is. It's everybody pays the same percent. And that's, if you really want to do a biblical perspective, and I always like to give you that when I give you the news, that would be a biblical perspective on this, same percent for anybody, and don't punish people for being successful. So that is the news from a Christian conservative standpoint. And remember, this is an election year. So contact these people who are candidates right now and nail them down on these tax issues and make them put it in writing, put it on video, something. And if they keep their promise and push against tax raise, that's the kind of person that we need. If they break their promise, try to raise your taxes, then make sure that you replace them at the next election. Well, that's the news we have for this week. So until next week, Patriots, I'm Lee Watts for Patriot Point, reminding you that liberty is not a spectator sport.